I used to think my life in Manchester was steady, maybe not exciting, maybe not breathtaking, but steady in a way that felt safe. A house that stayed warm in the winter, a husband who was good and responsible, and a routine that never surprised me. People think stability is a blessing. But sometimes, it becomes a silence that slowly eats you from the inside. I'm Olivia Grant. I'm 29 years old. And this is the year everything I believed about myself began to shift on my husband. Daniel is a decent man. He works hard. He keeps the lights on. He remembers birthdays and pays bills on time. But somewhere along the line, his eyes stopped meeting mine the way they used to. His voice lost that softness it once had. Our conversations became, "Did you eat? Did you pay this? I'll be late." It felt like living with the shadow of the man I married. I didn't blame him entirely. Life wears people down. Work exhausts them. But somewhere in that exhaustion, I disappeared. I stopped being seen. And that is the loneliness I never admitted to anyone. Then came Liam Carter, 22 years old. Hopeful eyes, architecture student, and the new tenant in the small annex behind our house. Daniel was the one who suggested renting it out. I agreed because it made sense. I didn't think this stranger would someday. No parts of me I hadn't shown anyone in years. The first day he arrived, he stood at my doorstep with a shy smile, clutching his backpack like he wasn't sure he belonged anywhere. "Hi, I'm Liam," he said, voice soft, almost gentle. Something about him felt fresh. Not naive, just untouched by the heaviness that adulthood slowly presses onto your chest. He was polite. He offered to help with groceries. He always greeted me, never rushed, never distracted. It was nothing meaningful. Or that's what I told myself. But small things can grow quietly, like cracks you don't notice until the wall is ready to fall. One night, a storm hit the city hard. Rain hammered the windows, thunder rolled like distant anger, and the house felt unbearably empty with Daniel away on business again. I tried reading, tried cleaning, tried distracting myself, but the quiet was too loud. Then came a knock sharp. Urgent, cutting through the storm. When I opened the door, Liam stood there soaked, hair dripping, jacket clinging to him. "Sorry," he said, breathless. "The power's out in the annex." I didn't know what else to do. He looked young in that moment. Human, cold and uncertain. "Come inside," I told him. "You'll freeze out there." He hesitated only for a second before stepping into the warm hallway. I brought him a towel, and he smiled a small, grateful smile that somehow warmed the room more than the candles I later lit. "I'll check the breaker." I told him it took a few minutes, and when I returned, he was standing in my living room, arms wrapped around himself for warmth. "It might take a while," I said. "The storm's rough." "That's fine," he replied. "Thanks for letting me stay here for a bit." I made tea. I don't know why, it just felt natural. Maybe because it had been months since I'd made tea for someone who actually looked glad to receive it. We talked while the storm raged outside. Just small things at first, his studies, his hometown, his dreams. He talked with a kind of earnestness I'd forgotten existed. And I listened, really listened, because something inside me felt awake for the first time in a long while. "This house feels peaceful," he said, looking around. I almost laughed at the irony. It used to feel more alive. The words slipped out before I could stop them. He didn't pry. He just nodded like he understood exactly what I meant without needing a full explanation. We sat there for almost an hour, the candles flickering, the rain pounding, his presence strangely comforting. There was nothing inappropriate, nothing suggestive. Just two people sharing a moment neither of us saw coming. When the power finally returned, he stood up slowly. "Thank you, Olivia, really. You didn't have to keep me company, but I'm glad you did." His sincerity disarmed me. "It was nothing," I said softly. But we both knew it wasn't nothing. After he left, the silence of the house felt different. Not peaceful. Not safe. It felt like the beginning of something I couldn't quite name. Something dangerous, something fragile, something impossible to ignore. And when I went to bed that night, the sound of the storm wasn't what kept me awake. It was the memory of Liam's voice, gentle, grateful, alive, echoing in a house that had forgotten the sound of warmth. The morning after the storm, the house felt strangely different, like the air carried something unspoken. I tried to shake it off as I brewed my coffee. Routine usually grounded me. But that morning, I kept thinking about the way Liam had said, "I'm glad you kept me company." It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. I found myself replaying the softness in his voice, the warmth in his eyes. Not because I wanted to, but because my mind clung to anything that reminded me I was still seeing. Daniel returned that evening, exhausted as always. He kissed my cheek without really touching me. Another ghost passing through the doorway. "How was the storm?" he asked, opening the fridge instead of looking at me. "It knocked out the power in the annex," I replied. Liam stayed inside until it came back. "That kid will get used to it," he muttered, grabbing a bottle of water. "Students complain about everything." I waited for him to ask more, but he didn't. He never asks anymore. I realized then how long it had been since my husband had shown genuine interest in anything I said. The difference between him and Liam felt sharp, like stepping from shadow into sunlight, then being shoved back into the cold. That night, as Daniel snored beside me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how life could feel full and empty at the same time. Over the next few days, something shifted quietly between Liam and me. Not openly, not deliberately, just naturally. He started helping out around the house without being asked, fixing a loose kitchen cabinet, carrying grocery bags, cleaning the garden Daniel had ignored for months. He always did it softly, respectfully, almost shyly. One afternoon, I found him repairing the garden fence, sweat on his forehead, his sleeves rolled up. When he looked up and saw me, he smiled with that same gentle sincerity. "Thought I'd fix this before winter hits," he said. "You really don't have to," I replied. "I know," he said, hammer pausing midair. "But I want to." Those 4 words landed too deeply. I want to. Something my husband hadn't said to me in a long, long time. I thanked him, but my voice had a tremor I couldn't hide. He didn't mention it. Everything might have stayed harmless, quiet, safe if not for what happened a week later. Daniel had rushed off early for work. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when Liam's voice drifted from behind me. "Good morning, Olivia." I turned, startled. I hadn't heard him come in. His hair was still messy from sleep, a light hoodie thrown on casually, and there was something in his eyes. Something he tried to hide but couldn't. "Morning," I said. "Breakfast?" He chuckled. "Only if you're eating too." We sat across from each other, warm sunlight spilling across the table. It felt normal, almost domestic to domestic. A moment that didn't belong to us. He ate quietly, stealing small glances at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Finally, he set down his fork. "Can I ask something?" he said softly. My chest tightened. "Go ahead. You seem different lately." "Not unhappy, just lonely." The word landed like a stone in my stomach. Lonely. It was exactly what I was. And hearing it from someone else felt like being stripped bare. "I'm fine," I lied. He shook his head gently. "Olivia, you don't have to say that to me." Something inside me cracked, just a hairline fracture, but enough to break the silence I'd carried for years. "Daniel and I sighed, staring at my hands. "We're married, but sometimes it feels like we're living 2 separate lives." Liam didn't interrupt. He just listened, really listened. No distraction, no judgment, only presence. "That must feel awful," he said quietly. "To be with someone who doesn't see you." My breath caught. He had voiced the exact ache I'd been denying. I suddenly felt too vulnerable, too exposed. I stood up quickly, grabbing the plates. I should clean these. But Liam rose with me slowly, carefully. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I notice things. I care. My heartbeat stumbled. A dangerous warmth spread through my chest. You shouldn't, I whispered. I didn't know if I meant he shouldn't care or I shouldn't want him to care. His voice lowered, soft as a breath. Maybe I can't help it. I froze not out of fear, but because his words echoed the exact emotion I had been trying to bury. For a moment, we stood there, two people caught in a moment that wasn't supposed to exist. Then Liam stepped back, giving me space, giving me air. I'm sorry, he murmured. Forget I said anything. He walked toward the door, but before leaving, he paused his hand on the frame, his head slightly turned. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. I won't judge you. And then he left, but his words stayed. His voice stayed. The feeling stayed. That night, lying next to Daniel's lifeless presence, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just lonely, I was vulnerable, emotional, drawn towards something I had no right to feel. And for the first time, I felt the edge of the line I should never cross, and how dangerously close I was to stepping over it. I didn't sleep much that night. Daniel came home late, kissed my forehead, asked how my day was, and then fell face down on the bed without waiting for the answer. I watched him silently for a long time, wondering how two people could share the same mattress yet live in two different worlds. But what kept me awake wasn't Daniel. It was the thought of Liam, his cracked voice, the way he tried to hide how shaken he was, the way he said, "Thank you. It means more than you know." No one had said something like that to me in months. By morning, I still felt that strange restlessness inside me. The next day, I made coffee and tried distracting myself with chores. But the moment I stepped into the hallway, I heard a soft knock on my door, not loud, almost hesitant. When I opened it, Liam stood there holding a small toolbox. "Morning, Olivia," he said, giving me a shy smile. "I wanted to fix the loose drawer handle you mentioned." I actually hadn't mentioned it. Not to him, at least. I had only mentioned it to Daniel 2 weeks ago, and he never got to it. For some reason, that tiny detail hit me harder than it should have. "Oh, sure. Come in," I replied. Liam walked inside with gentle steps, as if he didn't want to disturb the air in the room. While he worked on the drawer, I watched him from the kitchen doorway. There was something calm about him today, something softer than before. He didn't talk much, just focused quietly, his brows slightly drawn together. When he finally tightened the last screw and stood up, he wiped his hands on a cloth and smiled. That should stop it from wobbling. I nodded. "Thank you, really." Our eyes met, and for a moment, there was a pause. Not romantic, not inappropriate, just human. Two people silently acknowledging each other's presence in a world where they both felt slightly unseen. But then something unexpected happened. As Liam turned to leave, he stopped near the living room shelf. He pointed at the framed photo, an old picture of me and Daniel laughing at the beach. "Back when we still looked like a team. You look really happy there," he said softly. I didn't know why, but the comment stung. "We were," I replied. "Things just change." Liam hesitated, as if debating whether he should speak. "If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm around." I should have thanked him and walked away. I should have kept distance, but instead I asked, "Why do you care so much?" His answer was simple, too simple. "Because you care about everyone else. Someone should care about you too." The words froze me. Not because they were bold, but because no one, absolutely no one, had said anything like that to me in years. I felt my throat tighten. And before I could respond, Liam stepped toward the door. I didn't mean to overstep, he added quickly. You're kind. People like you deserve to be heard. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in my own living room with a heartbeat that refused to calm down. Later that evening, Daniel came home, barely noticing the fixed drawer. He talked about meetings, deadlines, office politics, words that filled the room but didn't fill the silence between us. At one point, he asked, "You okay?" "You look tired." I almost laughed. The irony hurt. "I'm fine," I said. But as the evening passed, I kept thinking about Liam's question from earlier. If you ever need someone to talk to, it echoed in my mind more than it should have. The next day changed everything. I found Liam sitting on the stairs outside, head down, elbows on his knees. He wasn't crying, but he looked like someone carrying too much weight on shoulders too young to handle it. Before I could even think, I sat beside him. "What happened?" I asked. He didn't look up. "It's nothing. Just my mom called. Another fight. Same things. Same patterns. Sometimes it feels like I'm just stuck in a loop." There was a tremble in his voice, a crack in his usually quiet composure. Without thinking, I placed my hand lightly on his arm. Only for a second. Only to say, without words, "You're not alone." He looked at my hand, then at me, not with intensity, not with anything inappropriate, just a kind of aching gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered. And that moment, small, fragile, unplanned, shifted something between us. Not a boundary, not anything dangerous. Just connection. A connection I hadn't felt in a very long time. By the time I went back inside, I knew one thing. This story, my story, was no longer just about a neglected wife and a distracted husband. Something else had entered the picture. Something unexpected. Something I didn't fully understand yet, but I could feel it. The distance between Daniel and me was growing, and the space between Liam and me was changing, quietly, slowly, and whether I wanted it or not, unmistakably. I didn't plan for anything to change. If anything, I tried to avoid it. After that moment on the stairs with Liam, I deliberately kept myself busy cleaning, sorting, working on things I had ignored for months. I wanted my mind quiet, my thoughts straight. But silence has a strange habit of making the truth louder. I kept asking myself the same uneasy question. When was the last time someone actually listened to me? When was the last time I felt seen? I didn't have an answer, and that's when I realized the problem wasn't Liam. The problem was the emptiness inside my own home. That evening, Daniel came home early for once, which should have felt good. But instead, it felt like I was standing across from someone I used to know long ago. He loosened his tie, dropped his laptop bag, and glanced at me. "You look like you have something on your mind," he said. The irony almost made me smile. "I do," I replied softly. "But you always seem too busy to hear it." He frowned, not angry, just confused. "That's not fair, Olivia." "No," I said quietly. "What's not fair is living with someone who hasn't looked at me properly in months." Daniel sank into the dining chair, rubbing his forehead. "You know, work is insane right now." "I know," I whispered. "But when was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you asked how I was and actually waited for the answer?" He didn't speak. Silence spread across the room like a slow-moving shadow. For the first time in years, I wasn't scared of that silence anymore. Later that night, I stepped outside for fresh air, thinking Daniel might come after me. He did in single quotes T. Instead, I found Liam sitting on the small wooden bench near the garden, headphones around his neck, staring up at the night sky as if searching for something he had lost. He looked up when he saw me, his expression softening in a way that made my chest tighten. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. I sat beside him, leaving a respectful space between us. Not really, but I'm trying. He nodded slowly. Trying is a start. For a moment, we just sat there, two people breathing in the same quiet night, both trying to figure out where they fit in the world. Then Liam said something I didn't expect. You don't have to pretend to be strong all the time, Olivia. Not with me. I closed my eyes. Not because his words overwhelmed me, but because they felt too honest. I'm not looking for someone to save me, I whispered. I know, he replied. I'm not trying to be that person. He turned his head slightly, his voice warm but steady. I just want you to know you're not invisible. Not here, not to me. The words lingered in the air, delicate and sincere. I didn't move closer. He didn't either, but something very real, very human passed between us, an understanding, a recognition, a quiet truth neither of us needed to name. When I went back inside, Daniel was sitting on the couch, staring at the floor as if finally aware something was slipping away from him. He didn't look up when I walked in. Not at first, then he said, almost in a whisper, Olivia, I'm sorry. I froze, not because of the apology itself, but because I had waited so long to hear it that I had forgotten what it even sounded like. He stood up, walked over, and for the first time in months, his eyes actually looked into mine, not through me. I've been distant, he said. I know it, and I kept telling myself it was just work, but I think I was avoiding the truth. I was losing you, and I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't speak. Not yet. He took a slow breath. I don't want us to drift apart. I want to fix this. I really do. His voice cracked just slightly, but enough for me to feel the sincerity in it. And in that moment, I understood something important. Daniel wasn't the villain. Liam wasn't the solution. And I wasn't broken. We were all just humans stumbling through emotions. We didn't fully understand. I placed a hand on Daniel's arm. We can fix it, I said softly. But we have to do it together. And you have to be here, not just in this house, but with me. He nodded, eyes glistening with a kind of relief I hadn't seen in years. For the first time in a long while, I felt the possibility of being understood, and as I went to bed that night, I realized this chapter of my life wasn't ending. It was shifting. Liam wasn't a mistake, he was a reminder. A reminder of what connection feels like. A reminder of what I had been missing in my own marriage. A reminder that I was still a person worth noticing, but Daniel was the man I had chosen to build a life with, and maybe, just maybe, this time he was finally ready to meet me halfway.